Hi guys, this is my second video on Macbeth. This time it's going to be on tragedy. I'm going to talk you through Aristotle's definition of tragedy and a tragic hero. I'm going to apply his concepts to Macbeth and then to Lady Macbeth, who arguably is a tragic heroine. And then I'm going to think about what Aristotle said that an audience response should be to a tragedy and to a tragic hero, and that's normally fear and pity. And try and reconcile that with what I said Macbeth was inviting the audience to feel about the main character in my first video, which was, the play is written to flatter King James I, so we're kind of invited to detest Macbeth. Now, obviously, those two responses are impossible to reconcile, but we're going to have to do our best with that because that's what the play invites us to do. Okay, so Macbeth is a tragedy, and according to Aristotle, and there's a picture of a statue of Aristotle. He was an ancient Greek philosopher of the 5th century BC, had loads of ideas on loads of things, but also including tragedy, which to him was a realistic depiction of serious and important events, leading to the suffering and death of the main character, causing the audience to feel fear and pity. And this fear and pity felt by the audience was meant to be cathartic. We were meant to feel cleansed afterwards and to have a higher perception of reality. So Macbeth is the tragic hero, clearly, and Aristotle said that a tragic hero is someone who is admirable in many ways, but he's got this fatal flaw, hamartia, that leads to his downfall. He makes stupid decisions, and as a result, by the end of the play, the audience pities him as well as admiring him. So, according to Aristotle, there he is again, tragedy develops in a series of reversals and discoveries. So we're talking about a reversal of a situation or the main character's intentions, and a discovery of some truth or reality. So a reversal of the main character's situation or intention is called peripeteia, but don't commit that ancient Greek term to memory unless you find it really easy to do so or you're really desperate to do so. If you just talk about reversal, that's fine. Discovery or recognition of a truth by the main character is called anagnoresis. Same goes for that term. Don't bother learning it if it's difficult to do so. Just talking about Macbeth discovers this or recognizes that will do. Now, Aristotle thought that the audience would be more emotionally invested in the tragedy if the reversal in the hero's situation and his discovery of the awful truth coincided. And Shakespeare quite often makes that the case. Right, now I'm just going to apply all these concepts of hamartia and peripeteia and anagnoresis to the overall plot of Macbeth. So, hamartia, Macbeth is admirable, but has a fatal flaw. He refers to his black and deep desires, and then he names those black and deep desires as his vaulting ambition. Now, to vault means to leap over an obstacle, and the obstacle here is an illegitimate obstacle, because clearly it's Duncan's dead body, and we know he shouldn't do that. The peripeteia, or the reversal, if you like, of Macbeth's good fortune or situation is actually an event that he himself instigates, an act that he carries out himself, and it's his murdering Duncan in Act 2, Scene 2. When does Macbeth have this awful realization that he's done the wrong thing? Well, it happens basically at the same time. The anagnoresis happens in Act 2, Scene 2. He fully recognizes what it is that he has done. And we can see that in this quote here, where he talks to his wife. He's come out of Duncan's chamber bearing those bloody daggers. He says, Glamis have murdered sleep, and therefore Cawdor shall sleep no more. Macbeth shall sleep no more. We've got this kind of like repressed hysteria going on in the repetition of sleep and the phrase no more. He thinks he can hear a voice that's telling him he will never rest again. And either that's a supernatural voice or it's a result of his guilt-stricken imagination. It doesn't matter. The fact is that he's incapable of referring to himself by one name. It's almost as if he's reaching for his identity and can no longer find it. So first of all, he calls himself Glamis, and then he calls himself Cawdor, and then he calls himself Macbeth. But it's like nothing will do. Whatever mirror he looks into, he sees only a distorted image of the man that he once was and is no more. All right, but Shakespeare uses loads of moments of reversal of situation or fortune throughout the play to keep up the energy of the play, and it really is a furiously energetic play with a lot of pace and tension. So I can give you 4 instances of that. Macbeth meeting the witches in Act 1, Fleance escaping the murderers in Act 3, Banquo's ghost appearing to Macbeth in Act 5, Act 3, and Macduff revealing he's born of woman in Act 5, Scene 8. So all these moments coincide with a discovery of some truth by Macbeth. So I'm going to walk you through that now. Okay, so in Act 1, Scene 3, Macbeth and Banquo meet the witches, and Banquo turns to Macbeth and sees a look of fear on his face. He says, "Good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that do sound so fair?" Well, Macbeth doesn't answer Banquo because from the moment that he meets the witches, he becomes a creature of deceit, okay? But he does actually answer the question in a soliloquy later on. Macbeth talks about the witches trying to engage his attention as a supernatural soliciting. And he says, well, it can't be ill. They can't be from the devil. But he says they can't be good either. They can't be from God. And he talks his way through this. He says, well, if their visit to me was evil, if it was ill, why hath it given me earnest of success? Why did it promise me success, that is, becoming King of Scotland, by commencing in a truth? Basically, the witches promised that he'd be Thane of Cawdor, and lo and behold, he discovers soon after meeting the witches that he is indeed Thane of Cawdor. But then he says, if they're from God, if they're good, why do I yield to that suggestion? And by suggestion, he means his own thoughts. He's imagining something to which he is yielding or giving way. And that thought is a horrid image of Duncan's dead body. The body's dead because he himself has killed Duncan. And that idea is unfixing his hair, making his hair stand on end in terror, and making his seated heart, his heart which pumps normally in a regular rhythm, knock at his ribs. His heart is starting to race in terror at the thought of killing Duncan. So basically, the reversal is meeting the witches, and the discovery is when he realizes, as soon as the witches speak to him, that he really is very ambitious and that he could very easily kill Duncan and just be very happy with getting the throne that way. Okay, so the next instance of a reversal of fortune is Fleance escaping. We know that the fears of Banquo stick deep in Macbeth, and all he wants to do is get rid of Banquo and get rid of Fleance, and then he'll be a happy man. So he starts Act 3 by thinking this will be done, and he holds a feast, that symbol of order, a symbol of his dominance over the assembled thanes, thinking that he's going to be perfectly safe. The murderers are going to carry out these dual murders. But the first murderer comes in sort of secretively, hands covered in blood. Nobody else can see him at this royal feast, which is another sign that it's just a pretense. Macbeth's not a real king. He's actually a tyrant. And he says to him, Fleance has escaped, and then Macbeth, on this reversal of fortune, suddenly realizes, I'm cabined, cribbed, confined, bound in to saucy doubts and fears. He thinks that he could have been perfectly secure, founded as a rock, but realizes now, on the reversal of fortune, discovery of the truth, that he is never going to be free again. Okay, the second reversal of fortune is when the ghost of Banquo enters and sits in Macbeth's place on his stool, and that's a symbol for the ghost of Banquo sitting on Macbeth's throne. Macbeth doesn't really belong there, is what the ghost is trying to say. And it doesn't matter whether you think the ghost of Banquo is real or not real, it's still a reversal of situation, because at the start of the play, we've got this lovely ordered feast with Macbeth and Lady Macbeth being gracious host and hostess. And it's a sort of a power play, if you like. Macbeth's trying to impose his authority on the Thanes by saying, you sit there and I sit here and I'm the one in control. But as soon as the ghost enters, Macbeth totally loses the plot, totally disintegrates. The feast becomes a sham. They're all in uproar. They can't believe what they're seeing. Their leader seems to be totally demented. Lady Macbeth is trying to pull it together but totally fails and sends the Thanes away. And Macbeth, at the same time as this reversal of situation, totally realizes that he can't get rid of Banquo. Banquo is like part of Macbeth, if you like, and he can't run away from it. So Macbeth says, "Thou canst not say I did it, never shake thy gory locks at me," but that's just a very weak denial, because by the ghost being there permanently, Macbeth has realized there is no way that I can get rid of my fears. This is a permanent state for me. Okay, in the last instance that I gave you, a reversal of fortune, is Macduff meeting Macbeth in the field of battle in Act 5. Now, Macbeth from Act 4 has been filled with this false sense of security. He's visited the witches. They showed him those 3 false apparitions that filled him with this idea that he cannot be vanquished. No man born of woman can kill him. And that's what he says to Macduff. "I bear a charmed life, which must not yield to one of woman born." And Macduff says, "Well, despair thy charm, and let the angel whom thou still hast served tell thee Macduff was from his mother's womb untimely ripped." Now, just going sideways here to talk about the angel, I think that references Lucifer, the fallen angel, in other words, Satan, whom Macduff insists Macbeth serves. And he says, "Look, I am that man. I am that man that can kill you. I am not born of woman." So the reversal of fortune is Macbeth meeting a man in battle who can actually kill him. And Macbeth realizes this and says, I'll not fight with thee. Macduff says, "Then yield thee, coward, and live to be the show and gaze of the time." Macduff is threatening him with life, yes, but life as an object of mockery by the people of Scotland. They'll just throw rotten food at him and say, "Yah, boo, tyrant." Macbeth realizes he can't live on that basis. He's too proud. He says, "I will not yield to kiss the ground before young Malcolm's feet, and to be baited by the robbers' curse lay on Macduff, and damned be him that first cried, hold enough." So he's realized he's going to be dead very soon. Okay, I'm now going to apply Aristotle's concept of the tragic hero and tragedy to Lady Macbeth. Just like Macbeth, she is filled with complete confidence at the start of the play. Macbeth believes that he is totally in control of his own fate. He disdains fortune, and Lady Macbeth is very much the same. So she's got this superb confidence that she can engineer his rise to the throne. She uses high modality language, glance at art and corridor, and shalt be. The phrase "shalt be" is the example of high modality language, which, if you remember, conveys absolute certainty. "Thou shalt be what thou art promised, and yet I do fear thy nature is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way." She's finely observant of her husband's weakness, and she knows exactly how to manipulate him. So she's totally, superbly in control of her husband and everything else at this point in the play. She uses the imperative "hie thee hither, come home, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear." So she's like the active agent here. He's just this empty vessel, and she's going to fill him with her personality, basically, in order to be able to carry out this very ambitious act of getting rid of Duncan and placing Macbeth and herself on the thrones. She will chastise Macbeth, punish him with the valour, the courage of her tongue, and take away anything that stops him from getting the golden round. The golden round is this metaphor for the crown, and it almost makes it seem like her mind is filled with this glowing vision of a brightly shining crown, and implies her obsession with power. So if you like, her flaw is ambition on behalf of her husband. So, does she actually realize, though? Does she ever have this discovery that the reversal of fortune, the act of regicide, which upends her as much as it does Macbeth in Act 2, does she realize, like Macbeth does, that the enormity of what she's done? Well, not really. She kind of does, and she kind of doesn't. She's always hiding from the truth, unlike Macbeth, who fully expresses the full horror of what it is that he's done. And we can see Macbeth entering here with the daggers. He's horrified at having killed Duncan, and he hasn't put them where he ought to have put them, which is next to the guards, Duncan's guards. And she is absolutely furious with him. And she uses the same commanding words that she did at the start of the play, but I'm going to look at them again in a minute and sort of show you a different way of looking at them. She, in great anger, she says to him, "Why did you bring these daggers from the place?" A really scathing rhetorical question. "They must lie there." More high modality language. "Go carry them." More imperatives. "And smear the sleepy grooms with blood." "Oh, go do what we arranged that you should do." Macbeth is petrified. "I'll go no more. I am afraid to think what I have done. Look what again, I dare not." So completely weak, completely vulnerable. And Lady Macbeth, again very scathing, infirm, weak of purpose. "Oh, you child, give me the daggers," another imperative. And she goes and does it herself. And then she contemptuously says to him later, "A little water clears this deed. What on earth are you fussing about?" So it kind of seems as if at the point of the reversal of her fortune and Macbeth, that she hasn't, like Macbeth, discovered the truth, that she shouldn't have done it. But I think she does. She just hides from it. Just prior to the scene, the dialogue where she tells him, "Why did you bring these daggers from the place?" She says to Macbeth, "Had he, Duncan, not resembled my father as he slept, I'd have done it. I would have killed Duncan if he hadn't looked like my dad." What she's saying is she's recognizing the limits she's transgressed. She's recognized that the patriarchal system to which she must comply, which cannot be broken down, is in full force here, and that she shouldn't have ever embarked on this plan. It's a recognition that she's reached her limits. And I think she recognizes that she's reached her limits when she says, "Why did you bring the daggers from the place?" Because the place is terribly vague. What she means is the chamber in which Duncan's dead body lies, but she can't say that because she's turning away from the truth. So she recognizes the truth partly in Act 3 when she said, "Naught's had or spent." It's a sign that she's filled with despair. The energy that she had in Act 1 is totally gone, and that she's committed this act of regicide for nothing. She's condemned herself to hell. She doesn't say it, but she's kind of getting there. In Act 3, sorry, that was Act 3, Scene 2. In Act 5, she's in the grip of a mental breakdown. She's sleepwalking. Her language disintegrates. We've got to bed, and come. She's constantly reliving that moment of having committed regicide and constantly on the brink of recognizing that she shouldn't have done it, that it's caused her own psychological and spiritual destruction. But she is constantly on the brink only ever in her sleep. She never reaches it in her waking moments. So she's constantly pushing this moment of discovery of truth away from her. So she's not, if she is a tragic heroine, she's not on a par with Macbeth, who fully faces the terrible thing that he's done. She's constantly looking at it and then turning away from it. And it's significant that her death also occurs off stage, and we don't know if it's suicide or whether she becomes physically ill or whether even it's an accident, because just like she sidelines her recognition of the terrible thing that she's done, Shakespeare also sidelines her as a character. So as a tragic heroine, she's not as nearly as important, I'd say, as Macbeth is as a tragic hero. All right, so how can we reconcile Macbeth's the invitation that Macbeth as a character gives the Jacobean audience to detest him and to hate him because he's just like those gunpowder plotters, or he's just like the devil? How do we reconcile that with him being a tragic hero? How can we do both at the same time? Well, we can, because Shakespeare bestows on Macbeth a great deal of complex and imaginative language, which really conveys how complex and insightful Macbeth's own recognition of his situation is. So we can see that, for example, in the way he talks from Act 2, Scene 2, of his hands covered in Duncan's blood. He says, "They pluck out mine eyes." It's like his physical self-mutilation, if you like. He's imagining he's mutilating himself physically, reflects his own act of regicide, which has caused himself to be spiritually disfigured. And he talks about, uses that hyperbole, "All great Neptune's ocean, will it wash the blood clean from my hand?" That rhetorical question is answered, "No, this my hand will rather than multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red." So we've got this kind of surreal yet poetic image of him standing at the sand's edge, looking at the sea, gradually staining red all the way from his feet to the horizon. It's horrifying and surreal, and it's hugely imaginative at the same time. And this kind of stuff really draws us in emotionally to seeing things as he sees them, and to feeling what he feels. I've been through this one before, but I'm not going to go through it completely because I'm running out of time. Other characters invite us to feel pity for him as well. So in Act 5, Scene 2, the Scottish lords are getting ready to march on Dunsinane, and Caithness, a Scottish lord, says, "Great Dunsinane he," Macbeth strongly fortifies. "Some say he's mad, others that lesser hate him do call it valiant fury." And that phrase, valiant fury, is really quite a heroic attribute, isn't it? And Caithness is sort of grudgingly admitting that there's something admirable still in Macbeth, even at this point where he's destroyed Scotland and everyone's calling him a bloody sceptred tyrant. And indeed, Angus goes on to confirm that view of him in the idea of him being a dwarfish thief. So Shakespeare is very finely balancing the reactions that we as an audience have towards Macbeth. And there are other things that Macbeth says that show how perceptive he is of his situation, and how noble he still is in many ways. So Macbeth comments in Act 5, Scene 3, "I'm sick at heart, I have lived long enough," conveying his despair. My way of life has fallen into the seer. My life is almost transparent. I'm almost about to be blown away by the leaf on the wind. He determinedly says, "I'll fight till from my bones my flesh be hacked." And that violent verb hack suggests that he's almost wants to be brutally murdered. He's so filled with remorse, but also displays his bravery. "Give me my armor," that use of the imperative. Just give it to me and let me fight. And then we get his reaction to his wife's death, and that nihilistic response, "Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, and all our yesterdays of lighted fools, the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle." This is a melancholy vision of life as a brief and delicate candle that just is lit only to be blown out. It can make a modern audience cry. I mean, it's very nihilistic, but I think a modern audience responds very much to this sense that life has no meaning, because a modern audience is aware of all the horrors that mankind has inflicted on itself, decade after decade, century after century. So although a Jacobean audience might be invited to think, well, Macbeth's filled with sinful despair at this point, a modern audience really kind of aligns itself quite naturally with Macbeth's emotions here. And although Shakespeare couldn't have known that, he still wrote language that invites us to feel it. So we really do feel pity for him in that. And then we've got Act 5, Scene 5, where he says, "At least we'll die with harness on our back." He's presenting himself as some kind of war horse going out to battle for the last time. It's really hard not to both admire and pity him with things like that. And then he says of the English army and the Scottish thanes who have come to attack him, "They have tied me to a stake. I cannot fly, but bear-like I must fight the course." We get this image of a bear chained to a stake with starving dogs, let loose from a cage, ready to rip him to shreds. And there is no way of denying that invites sympathy and pity. And the last thing that he says is to Macduff, where he says, "Before my body I throw my warlike shield, lay on Macduff." And that image of the warlike shield reminds us of the kind of warrior that he once was at the start of the play. And we really pity him for the loss of nobility that he had and all that he could have been before he made his wrong decision. And that warlike shield shows that he's on the defensive, which makes us pity him, because no longer is he brandishing his sword. He's only got his shield left. So for all these reasons, I think that if we are on the one hand invited to detest Macbeth as a sort of symbol of a traitor and a tyrant, we're also invited to pity and admire him. Okay, that's it, guys.